So here we go. If you have not been following all of this, Baylor has lost its star guard, Robert Wright. 11 points, 4 assists per game last year as a freshman. He shot 35% from three. This is a guy that Baylor was going to build around. They're turning over a lot of that roster, and Baylor felt like they had him secured. Baylor fans are now furious that he went to the portal. It has now been reported by multiple folks, including Jeff Goodman, that it is going to be BYU where Robert Wright winds up. So Baylor fans are furious. BYU is trying to defend its honor. Who is right in all of this? And I don't mean Robert. Who is right? I think everyone is. I think everyone's right. How about that? Okay. So I will explain here. I think it's possible that everybody can be right in this situation. Look, Robert Wright is a great player. That's definitely the type of guy you'd want to build around. I can understand why Scott Drew wanted to build around him. And according to Jeff Goodman and his reporting on this, Baylor thought it had him locked up and signed to a 7-figure NIL deal. He used the phrase more than $1 million. So Baylor was prepared to pay Robert Wright more than $1 million, and not just prepared, but they had a contract signed. Now, the problem is in today's day, this is, if you want to boil down to why the portal is so chaotic, it's this. I'm all for the players getting paid. Huge proponent of that. I don't have an issue with how much they're getting paid. But the worst thing about what's happening right now is that, there's really nothing binding at all. They can sign the contract and then bail a week later. It doesn't matter. And that's where you got to make the athletes employees, guys. You make the athletes employees, they could sign contracts and it would work like professional sports do. But NCAA, that's where we're at. So that's why Baylor is a huge part of why Baylor's left feeling so scorned. Like, man, you signed the deal. We had you locked up. It was a lot of money. Yes, you are a very good player. But, north of $1 million seems pretty market value for Robert Wright, depending on who you ask these days. I guess if you're going to say, hey, John, JT Toppin just signed for $4 million at Texas Tech, which he did. Maybe the going rate should have been higher for Robert Wright. I don't know. It seems not crazy low. I'll say that at least. So after that happens, then, of course, he does hit the portal. That news breaks earlier this week, and almost immediately when the news broke that Robert Wright was into the portal, as happens a lot of times with this, it seems clear that there was some back channeling going on, because almost immediately the word leaks that BYU is the most likely destination here, and this is probably what's going to happen for Wright. And now, as I mentioned, it is for sure. As of earlier today, when I was getting ready to prep some of this, that hadn't really come out, but now, 4 or 5 o'clock today, it really started making the rounds on Twitter, like Goodman and a lot of the major Pete Nakos, a lot of the major basketball reporters were hopping in and saying, yep, here it is, confirmed, BYU. Now, Jeff Goodman's report is in slight contrast to what we were seeing earlier this week. So earlier this week, it was being reported by, Greg Grayson, I think, from Sikkim 365, who had said that it was a $3.5 million NIL deal to BYU. That got everybody really riled up talking about the money. And that's where the second part of this discussion is going to be about BYU and money and some of the accusations there. Right. But $3.5 million was the dollar figure floated out there. Jeff Goodman is reporting that it's a $3 million NIL deal. And I will mention that Goodman he's pretty tight with Scott Drew, pretty tight with Jerome Tang. I think that whole coaching tree. He is somebody that's pretty tight with all those guys. So I'd imagine that obviously a lot of that's probably coming from the Baylor side. I don't know that for sure. That would be my informed speculation. And as I said, JT Toppin just got $4 million. So, $3 million is not as crazy as that sounds, right? Everyone made a huge deal about Coleman Hawkins last year getting $2 million. Yesterday's price is not today's price. Value of players is going up. If it's going to be the Wild Wild West, you're going to keep seeing that every year. So now your Big 12 Player of the Year gets $4 million. Robert Wright apparently is getting $3 million. Now, some things to keep in mind here, okay? One, yes, agents are in many ways incentivized to leak bigger numbers. It's going to make them look better. They're certainly incentivized to leak the numbers, period. Make sure those get out there, which I think comes at the expense of the player. See Coleman Hawkins last year. I think it was bad for him that it had leaked that he made $2 million. The other thing is, it happened lightning quick. Of course, there was some back channeling going on, but that's not I guess you can call it shady if you want, but it's happening with virtually every single recruitment that's out there. I mean, if you go subscribe to Trilly Donovan's Discord, like you're going to, there's all sorts of talk about, this school lured a guy into the portal. Like almost immediately someone enters the portal, there's a destination for a lot of these guys that is the most likely. Like it's just how it works, man. So you can dislike it, but it's not like BYU was doing anything out of the ordinary with that. So Baylor fans are furious, right? And I understand. I understand why Baylor fans would be furious. They should be very angry about this. I would be. I mean, it sucks to lose a star player like that. It absolutely does, especially when you're going through all this roster turnover. It's been a frustrating couple of years for Baylor since the national championship. This is the guy you were going to build around. And yes, you thought you had a signed contract. I understand. Like, I see the frustration here from BU Bear. Apparently, a signed contract means absolutely nothing. Like, unfortunately, that's the case in the NCAA. This is the state that college sports is in. It doesn't really mean anything, which is a crappy situation. That's not good. That's not the way it should be, but it is the way that it is. So, yeah, you should be upset about that. Not only are you losing a star player because of the way the environment is set up right now and you thought you had him signed, but you're losing him in conference. Like, you're going to have to play the guy. He'll have a chance to beat you. That's doubly crappy. You're going to have to hear about him, see him quite a bit. And there are other schools that have gone through this, right? Iowa State lost Tyrese Hunter to Texas. Texas Tech lost Kevin McCullough to Kansas. Football side, like Trace Ford left Oklahoma State, went to Oklahoma. We have seen this happen. And in every single case, I can remember in all those cases coming on here and being like, man, I really feel for the school that lost the player. Like that sucks. That really sucks. I can very much level with you and be like, I would hate it. I would hate to have to see that. It's come close to happening with, a couple of K-State guys in hoops that have been listed with Kansas for a moment. I'm just dreading the day when that finally happens and I'll have to do it like that. That will be a bummer. So regardless of how much money was actually paid, whether it was $3.5 million, $3 million, whatever you think about BYU and their NIL situation, Baylor fans have every right to be very angry and upset about this. Now, what I would say about that is that, one, it is kind of just a fact of life right now. Baylor fans should be mad, but it is a fact of life, and everybody, to some extent, has to go through it right now. It's a lot like a breakup. I would tell Baylor fans, I mean, this is like going through a breakup. It sucks. You should be upset. I understand. Take some time, grieve it, get through it. It will take some time to not sting. But it also is just a fact of life that everybody basically will experience at some point. And it's also something that will come back around on the other side. Baylor will likely be on the other side of this at some point. And same with BYU. It will happen to everybody. It's the circle of life right now in college athletics. That's just the way it works. So I don't begrudge Baylor for being upset, Baylor fans here. But the but here on the discussion is it does feel like the backlash, and I don't know that this is even just from Baylor fans, but the backlash has gone too far toward saying, hey, BYU is only getting players here because they have money from the church. They have money from the church, and they're just throwing it all around. And that's the only reason that AJ DeBonsta's there. And now they're taking Robert Wright from Baylor, a very proud program in the Big 12, when they already had this signed deal. There's a lot of demonizing BYU for this. And that's where I think you should draw the line. I think BYU was just operating under the normal course of business that is college sports in 2025. I don't think BYU really did anything wrong. And I think it is very foolish and ignorant to say that BYU is just getting players because of money. Money is helping. They have the money for the table stakes to be in the game for the highest level players. But if you think it's just because they're throwing 50% more money out there than all of these players, and that's the only reason this is happening, I don't think that is fair. And so that's an important distinction here on this whole discussion,